Another reality show. Pictures of people that you don't know. And mama wrecked the caddy and daddy's on the sauce again. And now your little brother's shooting heroin. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Hello and welcome to another installment of the Mostly Peaceful Protester podcast. I'm Brian Dennis, and I'll be here for the next few minutes talking about the ongoing issues with Facebook and the way it changes the way we relate to each other in our society. The intro music says that common sense ain't common enough, and that's becoming more and more evident as time goes on. Let's talk about why.
But maybe you could just slow down and take a step back and get yourself together and just relax. When the sun goes down at the end of the day, will your clenched fist open enough to pray and take a deeper breath?
Well, it seems lately we've allowed ourselves as a society to drift into some of the darkest places that we have been cursed with. These days, we seem so quick to move from a perfectly civil debate to some very hostile language toward each other, and it can happen within just a few minutes. Anger and hatefulness has almost become our go-to mode in dealing with debates and opinions that differ from our own. Instead of having intellectual, reasonable, and civil conversations during an online discussion, we go from everyday opinions, maybe opposing a viewpoint that someone has to a topic, to some of the most vile, hateful words that can be spoken to another human being, while the whole time hiding behind a computer keyboard. But maybe that's why it can get out of control so quickly. If the same conversation was taking place while the two parties were sitting across a table from each other, the debate could still take place, but the face-to-face setting and the ability to interpret the other person's tone of voice and body language would enable them to see the person as more than words on a computer screen. They would see them as a person. When Facebook employee turned whistleblower Frances Haugen testified before the Senate Commerce Committee on October 5, 2021, she disclosed a number of Facebook policies and internal workings of the company.
When we live in an information environment that is full of angry, hateful, polarizing content, it erodes our civic trust, it erodes our faith in each other, it erodes our ability to want to care for each other. The version of Facebook that exists today is tearing our societies apart and causing ethnic violence around the world.
What Facebook conveniently calls problematic use, says Senator Marsha Blackburn of Tennessee, is in actuality addiction. Addiction to Facebook. And like any other addiction, those that are selling the thing rely on its addictive lure for their repeat business, no matter what happens to the customer. So let me ask you, is it Facebook's fault or is it ours? I think it originally started out as Facebook's fault by addicting the user to its content through their sensationalized headlines and clickbait captions. After a while, though, like any other addictive thing, the user starts needing to continue the habit in fear of going into some kind of withdrawal. But what are they afraid of? It's only Facebook. It isn't heroin. With some drugs, such as opiates, a user who decides to quit must face the time it takes for the drug to leave their system, which could take a while. During that time, the deep physical and psychological distress that the addict experiences must be endured in order to heal. Now, there's no physical reliance on social media that could be considered an addiction, but what about the psychological impacts of withdrawal? The simple fear of missing out is one very strong emotional trigger that keeps some Facebook users returning many, many times a day. How many times have you seen that little badge on the Facebook app icon telling you that you have something new in your feed or someone liked what you had to say? At that point, you become so distracted by it, you can't continue with the rest of your day until you find out what's waiting for you on Facebook. Then, after you see that someone liked your cat video comment, you click on another post with an interesting sounding caption. Hours go by, and 1,000 clicks later, you finally come down from your Facebook high to suddenly notice all the things that you've neglected because of your Facebook addiction. Things still need to be done, but now we're at a risk of being late or not getting done at all. homework, house cleaning, face-to-face interactions, your children, and your job may be all neglected while you're captivated inside your Facebook buzz. The Facebook addict struggles with getting clean, and although they try to resist, they keep returning to their master. According to AddictionCenter.com, in today's society, the amount of time that people spend on social media is constantly increasing. In fact, the average user now spends approximately 136 minutes, over 2 hours on social networking sites each and every day. This constant exposure to hate, fear, politics, and feelings of inadequacy begins producing unintended consequences. Or was it intended all along? While social media platforms such as Facebook tout the benefits of people being able to socialize and connect with each other by using their app, the content being posted is many times resulting in the exact opposite. The American Journal of Preventive Medicine states that young adults with high social media use seem to feel more socially isolated than their counterparts with lower use. Future research should focus on determining directionality and elucidating reasons for these associations. That kind of isolation and focus on social media for their experiences in life leaves little room to wonder why stress and angst and the inability to do anything about it begins to climb to uncontrollable concentrations.
It's easier to inspire people to anger than it is to other emotions.
So, now you're addicted. But what if the drug dealer becomes an addict themselves? Adding to the dealer who is selling a harmful product to their customers are more powerful and readily available substances such as new extensions on social media apps to earn them more money. They become addicted to addicting others. The more of their product that the public becomes addicted to, the more concentrated the efforts of the dealer to supply other kinds of equally or increasingly addictive things to consume. This describes most of social media platforms such as Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and they need an intervention.
If they change the algorithm to be safer, people will spend less time on the site, they'll click on less ads, they'll make less money.
If the public who cares about civility online as a community were to confront companies like Facebook and give them the ultimatum of changing their practices for the better, or the public will turn their back on them, they just may be willing to make some real changes. But as it is, customer threats to leave social media have amounted to little more than verbal threats, blustering about how much they hate their platform of choice. TheHill.com says that propagandists work under the assumption that people eventually believe what they hear most often. The constant hyping of a culture of fear has rhetorically scared otherwise reasonable Americans into irrational emotions and behaviors. Historically, Facebook has been much softer on hate speech than other forms of controversial content, such as nudity. That may be because of the ambiguity that sometimes can be connected with hate speech. What may be offensive to one is just a simple comment to someone else. Politicians often speak of dog whistle or coded messages coming from different groups on Facebook that are used for spreading hate and divisiveness. Those buzzwords sometimes give deadly purpose to people who are looking for someone to blame for their problems. In 2015, Facebook Live was launched and has seen at least 45 instances of violence, from shootings, rape, murder, child abuse, torture, and attempted suicides. According to the New York Intelligencer, in 2017, 2 men in Slovenia viciously beat a man for 20 minutes on Facebook Live that later died from his injuries. And in another instance, according to the Canadian Broadcast Company, was the beating and murder of Serena McKay, a 19-year-old Canadian high school student, by 2 of her classmates in April 2017, in which footage of the crime was posted on Facebook Live. Why is it that people choose to televise their crimes? Don't they care that it gives prosecuting attorneys explicit evidence to convict them? Addicts don't think things through like regular people, so what are we supposed to do? In my case, After being thrown in Facebook jail for exercising my First Amendment right to free speech for the 4th time, I made the decision to turn my back on Facebook in its current form. I deleted my account. After nearly a year, I'm finding that it's so much easier to separate myself from all the noise and vitriol that I began to see more and more of on my Facebook feed. The more of it I was fed, the more bitter it began to taste. Fed up, I excused myself from the table and walked away. So is that the solution? Give him an ultimatum and be willing to back it up? In my case, yes. Now, that solution is for me, not you necessarily. What you do to protect yourself and others from online hate speech has to be your decision. It has to make sense to you. Social media platforms have lots of ways of filtering the language that you see on your feed to discourage hateful triggers. There are several apps and settings that can be employed to reduce online hate speech. They block certain hateful words and images from encroaching on an otherwise pleasant stroll through your friends' photos and stories. A website called MakeUseOf.com has published some ideas to aid in filtering some of the keywords and other content that may be encountered on social media sites. So while I have made a personal decision to walk away from social media in its various forms, most of the world wants to be able to keep up with happenings around the planet and in their local communities. After all, it's human nature to socialize and be in close proximity to each other. That's why we have cities. But for those of us that choose to interact with people in our lives via old-school methods like face-to-face conversations or phone calls, while our circles of friends may be somewhat limited, the friends we do have actually know us. They know what we like and what we don't, what's fun for us, and how we look at the world. Those relationships are real, unlike the thousands of so-called friends that social media butterflies may claim to enjoy. Honestly, I don't ever plan on returning to Facebook as a regular user. To set up activities and meeting times with my band and other friends, however, I still use Facebook's Messenger as a way to communicate. It's a compromise to stay connected without the rest of the nonsense. Even though all of my former Facebook friends are still listed and available on the Messenger app, and we can see which one of us is online or not, I still only communicate with a very small group of people on a regular basis. What this means, I guess, is that even though I still have the same long list of people at my virtual fingertips to communicate with, without all the memes, announcements, videos, cartoons, and all the meanness found on Facebook, visiting with a friend now means that all of that noise that distracts from and sometimes destroys relationships is replaced by genuine friendship, real conversation, and the peace of knowing that real people can still be real friends. So just for today, put the phone down and go outside. When you see someone you know, make the effort to go talk to them. Actually have a conversation. Be a friend. Don't just give them the thumbs up and move along like they do on Facebook. You've been listening to the Mostly Peaceful Protester podcast with your host, Brian Dennis. Listen again next week for a brand new topic.
A creek already traveled, we find ourselves without a paddle and out of fingers to plug the dam again.